Grace and peace. Welcome to Judah's Roar Domestic Violence Awareness Initiative YouTube channel. I'm your host, Apostle Cheryl L. Richardson. Today's topic is going to be stopping domestic violence. People of faith. What does the Lord require of us? What does the Lord require of us? Now, before we get started, I'm going to give you a couple of seconds. Check down here for that subscribe button. Make sure that you subscribe. Feel free to comment during this video and absolutely share this video. This is one way that you can partner with us in a way that is very, very impactful. Every post share, every video share has the potential to save a life and to correct the trajectory of the legacy of someone who is ensnared in domestic violence. Now, once you subscribe, make sure you click on that bell to schedule your notifications. We upload a new video every Sunday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. All right, now let's get to it. Often I'm contacted by those who are people of faith. They may be ministry leaders, they may be lay members, they consider themselves spiritual people, they acknowledge a power higher than themselves, and they're concerned about a friend or a loved one, or maybe it's even themselves, who are ensnared in a domestic violence riddled relationship. And because they are full of faith, this can cause a crisis of faith for them personally. It can be very, very challenging and emotionally debilitating as they observe a loved one or an acquaintance endure maltreatment in an ongoing manner. And so often I'm contacted by people and they're asking, well, how can I help this person? What do I say to this person? Um, how can I help, in a practical way? It's important to know that while prayer is absolutely essential and vital and important, that we must do more than simply pray. We must do more than simply pray. And so we're going to look at what the Lord expects, what He requires of us um, who name the name of Christ or who embrace even another faith. And we want to have a meaningful impact and help someone who is entangled in domestic violence. All right. So, domestic violence is debilitating. We understand that domestic violence is not limited only to physical aggression, that by the time physical aggression occurs, many other forms of domestic abuse have taken place within that relationship. Those who describe themselves as spiritual or believers, um, Christians, or whatever, regardless of your faith, it can cause you to question your own faith. It can awaken feelings of helplessness and sadness and even depression. And so it's possible for you to be a secondary victim because you're connected to someone who is a primary victim of domestic violence. Now, for far too long, those of us who occupy positions of authority in ministry, those who are clergy, ministry leaders, deacons, deaconesses, or whatever your denomination um, titles a ministry leader. For far too long, we have embraced this false belief that domestic violence does not exist within our circles, within our congregations, and within our communities. And this is patently untrue. It's patently untrue. And so, if you don't think that there is a problem, then there's no problem to address, right? The truth of the matter is that studies indicate that domestic violence happens with greater frequency within spiritual denominations than outside. Now, that's a hard fact to grasp and to accept, and it's appalling, and it should not be, but that's the truth. The truth is that domestic violence occurs with greater frequency within our spiritual congregations than outside of our spiritual congregations. And what makes this so egregious is the church, regardless of denomination, since the beginning of time, has been given the responsibility to minister to and to meet the needs of human beings through every stage of the life cycle, from birth, marriage, death, the whole entire cycle. Every stage of development, the church is present and the church is involved. And the church is supposed to provide spiritual covering. So it's important that we acknowledge that we have an issue inside our walls so that we can address those issues and ensure that our ministries are indeed safe places for those who are oppressed. Okay? What is it that the Lord requires? Those who are ministry leaders are entrusted with the greatest cares and concerns, the disappointments, the joys. You know, we get to share in the trials and the tribulations of those who are assigned to our voice in the realm of the Spirit, to those that the Lord has um, charged us to cover and to protect and to nurture and to mentor. And so often we are the first to know when the train jumps the track. We are the first to know when something is terribly, terribly wrong within a household or within a relationship. And we are entrusted with this information with the understanding that it will be held in confidence. Now, that's fine, and it should be held in confidence, but it must be addressed. And one of the cardinal issues that I have found as a ministry leader in all the years that I've been a ministry leader is that there's a tendency for clergy across denominational lines to focus on keeping that family unit in place, keeping the family unit intact. The problem with that is that should not be the most important thing. The most important thing should be ensuring the safety of the victim and any children and any other family members within that household. The safety should be the primary concern. Safety should be the primary concern. And sometimes the only way to ensure safety is for that family unit not to remain intact. And so the goal has to be the protection of the victim and not protecting this paradigm that is false, that's not true. That's not truly a family. That's not a healthy, nurturing place for the people who live there. Okay. And so that's one thing that I know that we really, really need to address. Okay. So we should be a formidable resource. We should be this amazing resource. We should be a very powerful resource for those who are oppressed, right? And that's not always the case. So, what does the Lord require? What does the Lord require? Let's look at Micah 6 and 8. The first thing that he requires is that we act justly. So, number one, to act justly. As people of faith, we have a God given responsibility to respond on behalf of those who are oppressed. I'm going to say it again. As people of faith, and certainly anyone who occupies a leadership position in ministry, we have an obligation to respond, to act, to do something on behalf of those who are oppressed. What am I saying? That we have an obligation to do more than just pray. That when we do pray, we need to be willing to submit ourselves, right, to being an instrument that is used to answer the very prayer that we've just prayed. We're not praying for someone else to be the hands and feet to bring the solution. We need to pray with the mind to submit, right? And to grasp how we can play a part in helping the oppressed to break free. We have to respond. It's not enough to simply know. It's not enough to simply nod and smile and pat the back of their hand and encourage them and catchy cliches. We must respond. We must do something to act justly. Justice, by definition, is the quality of being just, right? Embodying justice, moral rightness, conformity to this principle. So, conformity to the whole idea of being just, conforming to that, bringing my own life, you bringing your own life into alignment with what is morally right, conforming to that principle as manifested in conduct. There you go. We're talking about action again. Conformity to the principle of justice is manifested in our conduct, in what we do, not in what we know, not in how we pray, but in what we do about what we just observed. Okay. It's just conduct. It's the administration of deserved punishment or reward. And words that mean the same thing as justice are honesty, integrity, truth, and right. So the first thing that we need to do is to act justly, to do something, to do what is morally right. Okay? Not what's convenient, not what's entertaining, but what's right. What is the right thing to do? Right? And one way you can ask yourself that and challenge yourself is to ask yourself this: if it were me, what would I need for someone to do? What would I need to hear in order to walk free? Okay. Number two, the law requires that we love mercy. We are uniquely positioned as people of faith, having experienced the mercy of the Lord, having experienced His grace repeatedly. I know I've experienced it times too numerous to even count. Too numerous to count. And so, having been a partaker of His mercy, He expects that we will love mercy, that we will value it properly. And we need to be willing to extend that same grace and that same mercy that He has demonstrated towards us. We need to be willing to extend that grace and that mercy to others. Well, what does that look like? Well, let's talk about what it doesn't look like. This is what it doesn't look like. It doesn't look like me sitting on my spiritual perch and deciding that because the couple who is um, entangled in domestic violence because they're not married, because they're living together, because God didn't put them together in the first place, because they're a same sex couple. Mercy doesn't decide that they deserve whatever they get because they've made those choices. Because truth be told, God didn't leave us out there like that, right? He extended His grace and His mercy to us. No one deserves to be maltreated. No one deserves to be denigrated. No one deserves to be abused. If you and I agree with the lifestyle, if we agree with their choices, with their 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 decision making process or how they're choosing to live their life, no one deserves to be mistreated. And so He would have that we would love mercy and that we would extend mercy to others. Now, what is mercy? Kindly forbearance shown to a person in one's power. Certainly, if it's someone that looks up to you, that respects your position in ministry, that respects you as a mentor or an advisor, or you're, a close friend or family member, then they respect and they value your opinion. And so this means that if we extend mercy, that we don't, while sitting in that position of power, because if someone respects your opinion, that's a whole lot of power that you have in their life, right? You don't have to co-sign what their decisions are, but you understand that everyone has their own path and you understand that they don't deserve to be abused. Period. Okay. And that's what needs to be communicated. So, mercy is kindly forbearance. It's an act of kindness or compassion or favor, something that gives evidence of divine favor. So, those of us who deem ourselves spiritual, right, we're to be a living demonstration of the love that God has for others. So, our response, right, our response to their um, relationship issues, to the domestic violence that they're enduring, to the emotional torture, the gaslighting, the coercive control tactics that certainly abound in any domestic violence riddled relationship. If we can extend to them that forbearance, if we can extend to them that compassion, and thereby be a demonstration of divine favor. So demonstration infers action, right? So we're still talking about doing something and not simply just praying and pitching cliches and peering down our noses at others. Okay. Now, when we're talking about loving mercy, you're talking about forbearing, you're talking about forgiveness, but the most important thing has to remain throughout. The most important thing must remain the safety of all involved and reconciliation if that can be done safely. No one's life needs to be put on the line to test the theory of forgiveness in a relationship in which domestic violence has taken place. Victims are being killed day, every day, because of this mistaken belief that they must stay and endure however they're being treated. Okay. And a large part of the responsibility for that thought process lies with clergy across denominational lines. And we've got to cut it out. We've got to fix that. We've got to correct that. We've got to acknowledge that people have not been given good advice in the past and that their safety is the most important thing, not keeping the family intact, the fake family, because if it's DV is occurring, then it's a facade. Whatever you're seeing outside is not even real. All right. And then we're more concerned about being comfortable ourselves than the true safety of that family, those family members. All right. So mercy is synonymous with leniency, forgiveness, and sympathy, which means we're not casting judgment and throwing stones and throwing the rock and holding our hand and bombarding people with scriptures and things like that. We're understanding that we've all made mistakes. We've all made decisions that we wish we could dial back, that we could take back, that we could walk back. Um, and we extend mercy to them because the most important thing is that they be safe. All right. We're still talking about what does the Lord require? The third thing that he requires is that we walk humbly with our God. Now, when you look at the word humbly, what does that mean? Ingloriously. There's no self glory in it. Simply, submissively. Okay? Not submissively in terms of submitting to abuse, but submitting to God's will for our life, which is that we would have life and have it more abundantly, that we not be victimized or oppressed or enslaved in any manner. So, how do we do this? We must purpose in our hearts daily, intentionally, every day, even if it means verbalizing it. We must purpose in our heart to join the Lord in whatever He's already doing in an ongoing manner, to join Him in the work that He's doing and care for His children just as He has cared for us, just as He has cared for us. So, what is it that the Lord requires? Micah 6 and 8 says that we act justly, that we do something, that we love mercy, that we refrain from judging and relegating people to, well, that's the consequence of the choices that they've made. Um, and that we walk humbly with our God, that we understand that there but for the grace of God go I, that we be a demonstration of divine favor in the life of an abuse victim. Now, If someone approaches you or you become aware of a situation in which someone is being abused, what is it that you can do? The most important thing that you can do is to educate yourself. Even if you have a history of domestic violence yourself, even if you're a thriving warrior and you are seizing the mountain and seizing the day every single day and you are living a victorious life, that's awesome. But educate yourself because there's much to be learned about domestic violence. And one resource is this YouTube channel. So if you subscribe, then you've got access to over 90 videos that we have posted about different aspects of domestic violence. It's far more complicated than the average person even realizes. So educate yourself. Educate them. Provide them with resources in their community. Give them the hotline number to the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Get them in contact with domesticshelters.org. Encourage them to call a shelter or an advocate in their community. If they subscribe to our blog, they will be emailed automatically a template for a safety plan. A person who is in a domestic violence relationship needs a safety plan. They need a safety plan for leaving, and I say they especially need a safety plan if they don't plan to leave just yet. All right? Understand that on average, a woman leaves 7 times if she lives before she leaves for good. So if someone that you are talking to, someone that you're concerned about, leaves and goes back, don't give up on them and don't get frustrated with them. It's all a part of the process. Encourage them to develop a safety plan. Encourage them to develop a code word with you so that they can let you know without the abuser knowing that they need help. Assign a meaning to these code words. A code word for things are escalating over here and I'm concerned. A code word for things are really, really bad and call the police. Send help. So at the very least, you can develop a code word. But one of the most important things you can do is to not get exasperated and frustrated with them. And then self care is critically important as well. You want to make sure you take care of yourself because it's very, very possible to become a secondary survivor, which means that you vicariously, you're dealing with all this trauma, you're concerned, you're upset, and it can impact your mental health as well. And then the last thing that I want you to do is to make sure that you are safe if you're helping someone who is a domestic violence victim. Why do I say that? 20% of homicide victims are not even the original victim. They are loved ones, they are family members, they are innocent bystanders, they are first responders. And so when we purpose in our hearts that we are going to walk in Micah 6 and 8, and that we are going to do justly, we're going to respond, and that we're going to love mercy, and that we're going to walk humbly with our God, you want to use wisdom, you want to be safe, all right? And you want to be an encouragement. The last thing you want to do is to denigrate the victim, re victimize them, criticize their decision making, thereby strengthening the hand of the enemy. You will strengthen the abuser's hand if you don't understand what to say and what not to say. So, the most important thing is educate yourself, then help them to get educated, provide them with resources, develop a code word, all right? Um, and be safe yourself. This is Apostle Cheryl L. Richardson. We've been talking about what does the law require of us when it comes to domestic violence. Thank you for tuning in. You stay safe out there. Blessings to you.